Something has already shifted, and you didn't hear an announcement. No warning, no clear moment where everything suddenly made sense. But if you felt it, even slightly, then you already know. It's that quiet discomfort, when your life looks the same, but doesn't feel the same anymore. Not because everything is falling apart, but because something inside you refuses to stay where it was. You try to ignore it, call it stress, a phase, just another week. But it keeps coming back, in the way you think about money, in the habits that suddenly feel wrong, in that strange pull towards something you can't explain yet. And this is where most people miss it. Because when God shifts your financial season, He doesn't start with your bank account. He starts with your awareness. He changes what you tolerate, breaks what felt normal. Well, not to harm you, but to wake you. Most people are waiting for visible increase, but the real sign is that something inside you has already started rejecting the life you were living. That's where it begins. Not with more, but with disruption. And if you don't recognize it, you'll try to go back. Rebuild old patterns, force stability where movement has already begun. And without realizing it, you'll resist the very shift you've been praying for. Because financial seasons don't change around you first. They change you. And if you're feeling this tension right now, between where you are and something you can't name yet, this isn't confusion. This is transition. And what you're about to see next might explain why nothing feels the same anymore. You don't wake up in a new financial season. You drift into it, quietly. And the first sign isn't what you have. It's what no longer feels right. Thoughts that once made sense now feel limited. Patterns you repeated now feel heavy. Even your reaction to money starts to change. That's the first signal. Not increase, awareness. Because before provision expands, perception shifts. You begin to notice things you ignored before. Wasted energy, misaligned decisions, habits that don't fit who you're becoming. At first, it's subtle. You think differently about spending. You question what used to feel automatic. And that creates resistance, not from lack, but from clarity. And clarity is uncomfortable, because it exposes everything you were tolerating. So you think something is wrong, but it isn't. While what felt easy before was built on patterns that no longer serve you. This isn't loss. This is refinement. You don't lose the desire for more. You lose the desire for the same. And that changes everything. Because when money is no longer tied to emotion, fear stops controlling your decisions. You become more intentional, more selective. And that can feel like you're slowing down, like momentum is fading. But you're not slowing down. You're no longer moving blindly. You're choosing. And choosing always feels like less, before it becomes more. You start saying no. No to distractions. No to what drains you. No to what doesn't align. And that creates space. Quiet. A moment where nothing seems to be happening. But that space is where alignment is built. Yeah, because before something new enters, something old has to leave. So if things feel quieter right now, if you're thinking more than acting, if your instincts are sharper, but your moves are slower, you're not stuck. You're being positioned. This is where your internal compass is being adjusted. So when the right opportunity appears, you won't just see it. You'll recognize it. And that's the difference. Because opportunities don't change your life. Recognition does. And recognition only comes after your awareness has changed. So if your thinking is shifting, if your reactions are different, If your tolerance is disappearing, then you're already in the transition, even if nothing outside has confirmed it yet. And once that shift begins, it doesn't stay hidden for long. And this is where it starts to feel different. What was happening inside you begins to show up outside. Not in big ways, not yet, but in small shifts, quiet moments that seem easy to ignore. Conversations change. You hear things differently. Ideas appear and stay longer than usual. Something you once ignored now feels aligned. This is the next layer, when the outside world starts responding before results appear. But most people miss it because they're waiting for something obvious, a breakthrough, a clear opportunity. But it doesn't come like that. Sometimes it comes quietly, small, almost insignificant. Something you could ignore, like before. But this time, you don't. Because you feel it. Not pressure, not urgency. Just a quiet sense that this matters. And that's not random. Yeah, and because when your awareness shifts, you stop chasing what looks big and start recognizing what is right. And what is right doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives precisely. This is where discernment replaces impulse. You don't jump anymore. You observe. You wait. You listen. Not just to what you see, but to what you feel. And here's the tension. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. So you question it. Wonder if you're overthinking or missing chances. But the truth is, speed is no longer your advantage. Clarity is. Before, you moved fast, without alignment. Now, you move less, but with intention. And that changes everything. You start noticing patterns, not coincidences. Patterns. Repeated ideas. Repeated directions. Signals pointing to something specific. At first, it feels disconnected. But over time, it aligns. And that alignment creates something powerful. Confidence without pressure. You don't feel rushed. You just know, even if you can't explain it. And your decisions change. Cleaner, more precise, less emotion, more direction. This is how the shift takes form. Not through chaos, but through quiet alignment building underneath everything. So if you've been noticing these small changes, ideas that won't leave, opportunities that don't look big, but feel right, you're not imagining it. You're seeing the structure of something new. And once that structure starts forming, something else always comes next. And most people resist it. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Because just as things begin to align, something starts to disappear. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in small removals, quiet disconnections. A habit no longer fits. An income slows down. A connection fades. And your first instinct is to hold on, to fix it, to bring things back, because it feels like loss. But this is where most people misread the moment. What feels like loss is actually preparation. Because a new financial season doesn't just add, it removes what can't go with you. And that removal isn't punishment. It's protection. You don't build expansion on old structures. So what feels unstable is often God removing what would limit you later. And that creates tension. Well, because part of you sees the shift, but another part is still attached to what feels familiar. And familiarity feels safe, even when it's limiting. So when it starts to go, you resist, you question it, you try to rebuild it. But what you don't see is that holding on would cost more than letting go, because what's being removed is precise. It's the exact thing keeping you in the same cycle. And that's when it becomes clear. What's leaving your life is connected to who you're no longer becoming. Old habits, old reactions, old thinking about money, control, security. They don't fade. They stop fitting. And when something no longer fits, forcing it creates friction. So the discomfort you feel is not something going wrong. It's something ending. And endings, even necessary ones, don't feel good. Oh, but here's the part most miss. This phase requires trust without evidence, because you've felt the shift, you've seen the alignment, and now things are being removed. But the full picture isn't visible yet, and that space between what's leaving and what's coming is where fear shows up. It tells you to go back, to rebuild what you lost, even if it was limiting. But if you move from fear, you interrupt the process. You step out of alignment and delay what was already forming. Because this moment is not about reacting. It's about allowing, letting what no longer fits leave, so what does fit can arrive. And if you can stay here without rebuilding what's being removed, you'll start to see something deeper. Your financial season isn't just changing, it's being rebuilt from the inside out. And what comes next will begin to make sense. And then something clicks. Not loudly, but clearly. Things start to connect. You begin to see why certain things had to leave, why doors didn't open, why paths kept closing. And for the first time, it doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like direction. Clarity starts replacing confusion. Not everything, but enough to move without doubt. What once felt random now looks precise. What felt like delay now feels like protection. And that changes everything. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start seeing purpose in it. And when that shifts, your decisions shift too. You become calmer, more intentional, less reactive. You stop chasing and start choosing. And that's where real authority begins. Not over money, but over your response to it. Because before, you were driven by urgency, trying to fix, survive, catch up. Now, there's space between the moment and your reaction. And in that space, you move differently. You think longer, decide with precision, act without desperation. And this is where most people don't realize. The shift has already happened. Not fully in results, but completely in structure. Because once you change inside, everything outside becomes a matter of time, not chance. And that's where patience is required. Because even aligned, things still unfold in sequence. Opportunities appear, but not all at once. Paths open, but they require action. And now, you're no longer reacting to life. You're participating in it, with clarity, with intention, with alignment. And every decision now carries weight, because you're building something new, not repeating the past. You see things faster, understand deeper, and act without hesitation. Not because you're rushing, but because you recognize it. And recognition creates movement. This is how your new financial season forms, not as a sudden miracle, but as aligned decisions. made by a new version of you. And at this point, something becomes undeniable. This was never just about money. It was about who you needed to become. Because increase without structure collapses. But increase with alignment sustains. And that's why everything happened the way it did. Every delay, every removal, every quiet moment. It was building you. And when you see that, you stop resisting, stop questioning, stop trying to control everything. And you move with something deeper. Trust, not blind, but built on everything you've lived. And from here, there's only one thing left. Align with what has already begun. And this is where it becomes real. Until now, you've been feeling it, sensing it, watching things move quietly. But there comes a moment where you're no longer just observing. You have to respond. Because a new financial season doesn't come to carry you. It comes to meet you at a higher level. And if you don't step into that, you can miss what was already prepared. This is the part most avoid. Because it removes the idea of passive blessing. It shows that clarity requires action. Alignment requires movement. You start to feel it. A decision you've been delaying comes back. An idea you ignored won't leave. An opportunity that felt uncertain now feels precise. Not pressure, timing. Because when everything aligns, there is a window. Not forever. A moment where action meets preparation. And when you step into it, things begin to move faster. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop resisting. This is where faith becomes movement. You're not just hoping anymore. You're acting like it's already happening. Your decisions show it. Your focus shows it. And this is the difference. Because feeling it isn't enough. Clarity isn't enough. There has to be action. Not dramatic. Intentional. Saying yes where you hesitated. Letting go where you held on. Moving forward without needing every detail. Because you already have enough. Enough awareness. Enough confirmation. Enough change inside you. And when you act from that place, momentum begins. Not forced. Not rushed. Natural. Because now, you're moving in the same direction as what's been forming inside you. Yes, and once that starts, everything connects faster. Opportunities lead to more. Decisions open new paths. What felt slow starts to feel aligned. And that's how you know. You've crossed into a new season. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer operating the same way. You're not reacting to survive. You're building with intention. And that changes everything. So if you've felt this, seen the signs, recognized the shift, then understand this. You're not waiting anymore. You're already in it. And the only thing left is to fully align with it. Not later. Now. Because this season doesn't wait for certainty. It responds to movement. And when you move, provision meets you there. And now, you can see it. Not perfectly, but clearly enough. What felt like confusion now has meaning. What felt like loss now has purpose. What felt like delay was timing. And something settles in. Nothing was wasted. Every discomfort shaped you. Every shift prepared you. Every closed door protected you. And when that lands, you stop measuring progress by what you see. You start seeing it in who you've become. Because the shift didn't start with money. It started with you, your awareness, your decisions, your alignment. That was the beginning. Everything now is just unfolding. And this is where peace replaces pressure. You stop forcing, stop chasing, stop reacting from fear. You move from alignment. And alignment moves differently. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It moves with direction, without needing proof. And from there, your relationship with money changes. You don't chase it for safety. You manage it with clarity. Because now you understand. This was never just about resources. It was about structure. And that structure is now inside you. So there's nothing to go back and fix. Nothing to chase to prove anything. What you need is already aligning. And the more you trust that, the clearer everything becomes. Decisions feel easier. Opportunities feel obvious. And what once took effort feels directed. So don't rush this. Don't force what's already unfolding. Stay aware. Stay aligned. Stay intentional. Because this season is not built on chance. It's built on who you've become. And if you keep moving from that place, you won't miss what's meant for you. Bon, you'll recognize it. Step into it and build something that lasts. So pause for a moment and acknowledge this. You're not waiting for the shift anymore. You're already living it.